You know, in my head that looked a lot more tasteful. 2021, what a year. One of the greats. I'm kind of in a rush, so let's just bash this shit out quickly. If there's anything that I mention in passing that you want to hear more about, let me know, because I've seen the script for this video and most of it isn't gonna make it. Now this is quite a good idea for a video because I haven't seen that much or played that much or listened to that much this year. I'm not that interested in, I've kind of gone off consuming content generally. But the crazy thing is, in spite of that, this actually contains all of the best things of 2021. All of the best things of 2021 is a subcategory of content that I consumed. But enough about me. Or is it? I guess let's talk about movies. You know, it's obviously been a slow year for movies generally, outside of my viewing habits. I have a lot of respect for what Happily was trying to do, even though it never managed to live up to its own insane start. June and No Way Home checked all the boxes. They're serviceable blockbusters. Over in good shit, Titan was incredible. But for me, I'm not big into horror, as will become clear in my next sentence. I hate to say it. Terrible phrase, but my favorite movie of the year was Seance. Simon Barrett's directorial debut. Simon Barrett of You're Next and The Guest. If you like The Guest, check this out. If you haven't seen The Guest, watch The Guest and then check this out. I've seen it described as like Scream meets Suspiria with a dash of Mean Girls, which is good. Why do people say things like that? Again, I'm not big into horror, but I am assured that this is very proto-giallo. It's got that John Carpenter horror western type feel, which is helped along by a banger synth score. Which, by the way, no one knows how to use a synth score like Simon Barrett. It's tastefully done, and also, like, it's cheesy, but you never notice it. You know, it's like just perfectly integrated. Also, it has this crazy anamorphic look throughout, which is great to see. It's a movie that embraces being digital and pushes it in a visually interesting direction. Why is no one else doing that? It's not huge on like spooks and scares, it's just well written. It's got great dialogue, a good heart, a tight script, earned twist. It's not trying to subvert expectations or be meme-worthy or do post-meme-worthy social commentary. It's just good. It's interesting because from what I know of Simon Barrett, he's a pretty online guy, but he doesn't fall into the trap of like catering to website users, which is increasingly rare. A lot of entertainment now, it feels like the writers are online too much. Because they are. They're demographically, disproportionately online. I hate it. I hate to see a mainstream movie where you're complaining about Twitter discourse or making a joke about who Pete Davidson's dating. It's like, yeah, I've seen websites, but why is this stuff in your movie? I don't know. Especially in horror, right? Everyone's trying to do like a post-ironic twist to try and cater to and surprise specific website users. With this, it's self-aware and it knows what it's doing, but it's not like winking at you. It's a movie that exists like without considering its audience, separate from its reception. It just knows what it's doing. Remember that when movies used to be like that before I was born? A good example, maybe it's not a good example, but something that I want to bring up, which I feel dovetails into it, is the use of phones in the movie. They're just part of everyday life, as they tend to be, right? But a lot of writing, even now, doesn't know how to handle it. Either a plot device that pops up and disappears, or they're like, you know, they have to do some commentary about phones. It's just part of the world. So it feels like, for me, it's very modern, but also a little anachronistic. It could be from an alternate history where that John Carpenter lineage continued, and this sort of, you know, rides on the back of that. It's not a throwback, it's not trying to do retro or anything. It's from now, but it's utilizing elements from the past that we've maybe forgotten. It's not reaching for art status, it's not formulaic schlock, it's not a subversion of formulaic schlock or a subversion of reaching for art status. It's just a movie that's trying to be a good movie. Maybe Simon Barrett is so subversive that he realized the most subversive thing you could do was make something good. But I think it hasn't found an audience, it hasn't found its audience, because it would have attracted mostly horror fans who were bored by the runtime largely consisting of girls talking. I saw someone call it mumblegore derogatorily, but maybe that is what it is. It is just really fucking good at it though. Now, there's a bit of a problem here in that I've been getting into not listening to music this year as like a productivity thing. That's what life's all about. Min-maxing your productivity. The Donda listening parties were great. Not that Donda was great, but, you know, it was just an insane event with some, you know, good tracks and bad tracks. It was an interesting thing. Molly Lewis and Skull Crusher both had really great inventive singles out. Heaven by Command 094 was a really wonderful Blade Runner soundtrack. Maybe the second best Blade Runner soundtrack. But it wasn't as good as the Scandinavian post-cyberpunk of Dead Melodies. But my top pick for 2021 was easily Black Country New Road for the first time.
The absolute pinnacle of British engineering.
They do a sort of free jazz post-punk fusion. I guess, I don't fucking know. It's probably like post-rock, but I feel like that gives the wrong impression because it's often very mellow and poppy at the same time as being incredibly chaotic. And they're pretty fresh, and their early singles and live performances were really raw, really incredibly raw, jarringly raw. With these lyrics that would wildly shift between like theatrical and poetic to just very broad pop culture references.
Mother is juicing watermelons on the breakfast island, and with frail hands she grips the NutriBullet.
To intensely personal, to funny, and also sometimes totally detached, you know, putting his ugly side on blast. And throughout there's this sort of class anxiety and worries about, you know, being a failure because all this content was written before they released this album and it was very successful. And it's very self-aware and funny, but it also has a self-awareness about how your self-awareness about self-awareness does fucking nothing. Which I feel like are all very current anxieties that don't get vocalized often or ever. They're a 7-piece band, but they all sort of get a moment to shine. The vocals are very dominating and always sort of front and center, but at the same time quite sort of staccato and like atonal and sparse. So often the vocals are actually acting as a counter melody to another piece of the band. So all these different instruments get their chance to shine and play off against each other, and it does feel like this very creative, collaborative approach to music. And it all comes together into like this very cinematic whole that surpassed my expectations going in. I was super impressed by those early singles, and I was blown away by the album. And to be honest, I feel like there's just not enough sax in music. There should be more, in my opinion, this is what all music should sound like. And then as an album, there's some changes to those earlier singles to polish them up and reflect on the earlier, rougher, rawer material, which first hearing those singles seemed like very bold things to say, but I guess was more of an impulsive accident. And so when you're faced with sudden success, you've got a lot of eyes on this stuff all of a sudden. It seems like it was a pretty brutal thing to grapple with. So the album's kind of a very personal and vulnerable look about regretting being so personal and vulnerable in the first place, which makes for a great and pretty intense through line for an album. It's just really fresh and it's very current, and it sounds like they're having a lot of fun. Fucking video games. I feel like there's not that much going on in the AAA space. I couldn't get past the jokes in Guardians of the Galaxy. I assume Hitman improved on the Hitman formula. I assume Forza improved on the Forza formula. I assume Halo improved on the Halo formula. Deathloop was good enough, but it felt like half a game. Unpacking was really well polished if you're into that sort of thing. Slipways was the best space strategy I've ever played. Fucking check out Slipways. But my game of the year, so easily, was Cruelty Squad. It's like Deus Ex on acid. No, I'm joking. I don't think I'm the target audience, but I'm kind of disappointed by the reaction to this. It's, you know, it's either a meme game or it's a puzzle to be deconstructed, you know, by internet losers. I just feel like it's a good game and a cohesive piece of art. I feel like if you'd never seen an indie game and you didn't know that they were supposed to be twee bullshit, this is what you'd imagine they would be like. Genuinely experimental, a bit of fun, and more artful than the mainstream stuff. It's actually very mechanically innovative. You know, it takes that immersive sim thing and puts its own spin on it. It's a more inventive, immersive sim than Deathloop. It's got a mix of sort of classic level design and modern level design. It's deeper and better. It's just better. And it's full of surprise and those emergent moments. And that Hotline Miami glass cannon puzzle shooter type thing is such a perfect fit. At the same time, it's very angry and adversarial. It's ugly and off-putting and genuinely hard to play for, like, you know, more than an hour at a time, which is good. I feel like things have moved away from that Sierra thing of like the game fucking you over, or I guess like arcade games, just the game fucking you over randomly for no reason. Things have moved away from that so much. It's actually refreshing and good to have a bit of that. You open the wrong door, you immediately get killed to death. That's funny and it's refreshing and it's great to see that type of thing. And it makes Cruelty Squad is very much you versus the game. Like with that Hotline Miami comparison, Hotline Miami had that great gameplay loop where the second you die, you can just hit R and immediately start over. There's only like a half second of annoyance at yourself before you're back in the game. Where Cruelty Squad, that same gameplay loop, that same situation, but you have to watch like a 5-second death screen first and then navigate through an awkward menu to restart. I mean, that's a tiny piece of gameplay that you get used to pretty much immediately, but it's a good example of like, Cruelty Squad exists almost entirely in that annoyed space, and that plays very directly into its story and into its themes and into its ironic power fantasy, and it's a more cutting satire than anything else, at least in gaming right now. Not by being clever, it's just appropriately pissed off at the state of things. So I feel like Cruelty Squad is what the cyberpunk genre is supposed to be. I guess. I don't know why I said that. I'm not sure if I think that actually. Whatever. Cruelty Squad is a great game. Now let's do TV. One thing about me is I will often just watch the first and last episode of a TV show and just extrapolate what happens in the middle. The rest is just a waste of time, unless it really grabs me, in which case I'll watch it through, unless it loses me, in which case I'll skip to the end. So with that in mind, I thought Hacks and Kevin Can F***K himself were solid ideas that they just couldn't deliver. I was genuinely interested in both of them, but they were too timid in their approach, and very much the same way. There's maybe actually a video in that. That's not a recommendation. Anyway, I thought Foundation had tiny moments of greatness. How To with John Wilson Season 2 was more of the same if you liked Season 1, which I very much did, and I was very surprised that I liked Taskmaster New Zealand Season 2. That's the stuff that was like at least okay. Sorry, I really hated a lot of TV this year, I guess. Just those last two are the honorable mentions. But my show of the year was Succession Season 3. Easily. Almost everything I heard about this show put me off. The fans put me off, I watched the trailer, that put me off. The one thing that finally sold me was the Jeremy Strong profile. I don't know if you heard about it, but the idea of someone method acting a character who's just kind of a cock and not realizing that he's doing comedy was very interesting to me. And it's fucking magic. It's absolutely a highlight of the show. It gives the interactions between the cast a fantastic, authentic energy.
Oh, here he comes, the attention whore.
And the writers definitely know how to write for it.
I brought you those Danish cinnamon things from the wherever place.
Oh, that's sweet. That is so kind. Thank you.
Oh, shut up. Just eat them or don't.
And you just have this guy delivering insane beats with absolute conviction.
You go.
Okay.
But I think the headline needs to be, fuck the weather, we're changing the cultural climate. But you go.
No light behind his eyes that he might be doing something funny, just fully selling these moments. Selling it like it's the most important shit in the world, which, you know, to this character, it is. That's a side note, but it is a wonderful thing to watch out for. The point is, I started watching Succession relatively recently, and, you know, I watched it all straight through, so I can tell you, I love the show as a whole. I love the wall-to-wall, genuinely detestable characters, the unique style of it, the subtle plotting, the low-key comedy and drama without ever feeling like it's trying to do comedy or drama. No jokes, which is exactly what I'm looking for. But I wasn't that impressed with season 3. It lacked a lot of the energy of the earlier seasons and had a lot more actual melodrama and actual jokes, where I feel up to that point it had managed to ride this line of being, you know, consistently very dramatic and very funny without feeling like it was trying too hard. And worst of all, it started to feel like the writers were on Twitter. It's partly forgivable when, you know, Kendall's too online, that's in character for him, but when it goes beyond that, I think this season contains some of my least favorite moments of the show.
Unsubscribe.
Just the vibes were off, and I think it's probably just COVID impacting production. They notably have a very loose and collaborative set, and you can see how, you know, social distancing would get in the way of that. And as the season went on, the restrictions loosened off, the show found its footing. I'm not making a point there about coronavirus restrictions. Personally, I love it when people aren't dying of disease. I'm just saying, I think that was maybe the reason for the iffy start, just the literal filming conditions. But by the time we get to those last 3 episodes, they're the best 3-episode run of, I'm gonna say, any TV show ever. It manages to hit that balance of drama and comedy without feeling unearned, better than it had ever achieved up to that point. And it really shakes things up in a way that the more formulaic start of the season lulled you into thinking that this show would never do. I don't think I want to get into it more than that. I'm just going to leave it at that. Great show. Check it out. One of the best. Yeah, see? I'm not just a contrarian. I can agree with popular opinion sometimes. There we fucking go. Annoyingly, I guess it's all like offbeat outliers which are antagonistic and funny without doing jokes. That's the theme. Any shit like that. I did also want to mention Slipways and Taskmaster Season 2. I've written stuff for them. I'll record that. That'll go up on the website. I think that'll be it though. Finally, a best of list that I 100% agree with.